Okay, tonight we're going to begin one of my oldest series, a relationship series. This series goes back, first time I did it was, believe it or not, in 1984. So it's been around for a while. It's one of my favorites, though. In fact, I'll tell you the story later on. I told you already. This is what I wrote my first book about, on relationships, the gifts of life, which has sold close to 10,000 copies. And it's now on Amazon, Audible book, and Kindle, and it's all over the place. And everybody comes back to me and tells me it's still their favorite. So it's kind of neat when you come down to it. Anyway, I want to begin tonight with doing a reading from Each Day in the Beginning, the Daily Meditation book for women, one of my favorite books. And I picked a reading from July 28th. In fact, the readings from July 28th through August 3rd are all based around relationships, and they're really some good readings. The beauty of loving someone is the feeling of wholeness that I experience, the need for that individual in my life. I'm part of you and you're part of me, feeling that connects two people and makes them necessary for each other. All that is asked of us by our Creator is that we love one another. Where love doesn't flow easily, perhaps we can just decide not to hurt someone. If we each avoided hurting all people just for one day, lives would be transformed. We'd each see the world with a fresh perspective. The more we love others, any others, the deeper our love will grow for all others. Loving lifts our hearts and lightens our burdens. Every day's tribulations can become triumphs when we carry love in our hearts. Love fills us up, and the more we share it, the fuller we become. We are connected, each of us to each other, all of us together. Our contributions to the whole are necessary. Its completion is made perfect by our presence. As I pass a friend or a person today, I'll be grateful for their contribution to my wholeness too. I wanted to kick this series off with that reading because I truly believe in that concept. They talk about wholeness. We talk about the fact that all of us together are powerful, and that usually love is the energy that brings people together. Love is the energy that heals. What I want to do in this series is kind of show you how I kind of put this together. And the book I wrote was called Relationships, the Gifts of Life. This book, I told you the story many times, came about through one of God's miracles. You hear me talk a lot about what I call God winks, how things kind of happen. We don't know how they happen, but they happen because we're given messages by the higher power. And this book was born back in 1985 when I gave this series of lectures at a place in Malvern, Pennsylvania. After the lecture, I met a lady named Annie. I never met me before in my life. Don't ask me why. Well, I'm Italian. I talk a lot. So I just said to her, people want me to write a book. I don't know how to write a book. I don't want to write a book. I went on and on and on. I said, well, someday I'll get somebody to take my lectures, type them out, and maybe I can use it as a foundation. And Annie just smiled and looked at me very nicely and said, I did it already, Vince. Don't worry about it. Next week, she brought me in the manuscript for the beginning of my first book. That's amazing. I really believe in this concept that we truly have a sense of faith and trust. The higher power sends people, sends teachers. A good friend of mine from the Philadelphia Inquirer took this stuff, worked with me, and he put it into a book form, and it was born. And I look at this in a very simple way because I really believe it was something that was sent and connected to the higher power and sent to us. So tonight what I want to do is the first chapter in the book, which is to how to identify unhealthy relationships. So I apologize to you ahead of time, not to make you a little depressed tonight. Okay, so I apologize. But I promise you the next 3 lectures will be very uplifting. I need to be able to describe in very many ways how unhealthy relationships are interconnected to codependency, and how many of them are centralized around the 2 major words, control, and fear. So many times in the course of life, we have many different types of relationships. We have love relationships between man and woman, woman and woman, men and men, different people in different directions, parents and children. There's all kinds of different ways, even our work and place we are, they're all relationships, they're all connected. Yet so many times in life, if we live in the aspect of fear and control, then the relationships are turned into either manipulation ships or con ships or control ships, not really a relationship. I like the word relation because the word is real. It's got to be real, which means it comes from here, not from here. It's not about control. It's not about fear. It's about being able to accept and to share and to give our gifts to others. Because I'll tell you right now, Thomas Merton said it beautifully. No one is an island. No one can function on their own. We have a tremendous need to be part of one another, to be part of community, to be connected to others in the course of our relationship. Because our growth comes from our interconnection with others, not our codependency with others. As I get into this series, I'll talk a lot more about the concept of interdependency versus codependency. Remember my definition of codependency? I defined it as any person, place, or thing that I have become dependent on, means I cannot function without it. That makes my life unmanageable and makes my life insane or crazy. It's that dependency, it's that control. Whenever you try to control any type of relationship, you're going to destroy it. Anytime you try to coerce people through fear, it doesn't work. Because really, that's not the energy of love. Love is a balm that heals. And the ultimate relationship, we'll talk more about in the lectures to come, is the one that we have with ourselves. I have said this so many times. If I truly do take the time to work on me, get to know me, get to be connected to me, then I have the energy and the gift to share with others. How can I truly give love to another person if I do not love myself? Because the energy from me has to flow out to others. Everything in life flows. That's why we realize the fact that everything in life works on that law of attraction. We attract into our life what's going on inside of us. If I'm constantly negative, afraid, scared, and in control, try to be in control, I will attract that into my life. And as a result, then I won't be able to have relationships. When we talk about unhealthy relationships, there are 3 levels of relationships we talk about. And I kind of connect these to the concepts of codependency. We talk about isolation, we talk about fantasy, and we talk about caretaking. These are all control-based relationships. They're all ways in which basically we survive and get through life. See, when I have no healthy sense of who I am as a person, that I don't live life, I survive life. And I sit around and wait for the undertaker to come and pick me up. We don't call that living. We call that something, I don't know what. But the bottom line is I'm learning over and over again that we can very easily get caught up in different types of relationships, but they interact back to how things were supposed to be. Everything we do in life goes back to those foundation years, the beginnings of our life. How things are supposed to be. Now, here's a little bit of theory, so don't get upset yet. Just theory. So, I don't want to get Pat too upset, but it's just theory. As a little girl growing up, your father is supposed to be your role model for a relationship. He's supposed to teach you how to have safe and healthy relationships. For a little girl, it's supposed to be daddy. For a little boy, it's supposed to be mommy. Daddy also, for a little boy, should teach him how to be a man, how to be able to interconnect and have respect for people around them. For a little girl, mommy is supposed to be her role model, what it means to be a woman. These things don't always happen. So as a result, we have a tendency to migrate certain types of relationships to kind of fill that void that we have inside of ourselves. For example, in isolation. So many of us have a tendency to live in isolation because we live in fear. But at the same time, we are scared to take chances. We're scared to move forward because usually in growing up, these are individuals that are empty, lonely, scared, never really have a sense of childhood, and so never really got the intimacy, the connection, or the love. So when they grow up, they have a tendency to become almost, I use the term, they become hostage takers, which means I'm empty, I'm lonely, and I'm scared. The first person that comes along that treats me nice, I'm taking the sucker home. If you try to get away, watch out. There's an old mantra. I call it the codependency and the sick relationship mantra. It goes like this. If you truly love someone, follow them and stalk them. They try to get away, kill them. It's called control, and it's scary. And so many times in life, we have a tendency to get caught up in this. So in the isolation type relationship, I keep looking for somebody to make me happy, somebody to tell me who I am, somebody to do it for me. I keep wanting somebody else to always be the answer to everything for me. There's an old song from the 50s, and it goes like this. You are my life. You are my everything. You are my all. It means I don't exist. Nice romantic song, don't get me wrong. But really, in reality, it's an extremely sick song. Because it means basically, I'm saying, without you, I'm nothing. And so the concept is, so many times we have a tendency to keep looking for that magical person who's going to make everything okay. Who's going to be able to control everything. And there is none. You know, there is no Lady Godiva. There is no magical person. There is no Mr. Wonderful or Mr. Fantastic. There's nothing out there but a bunch of good old-fashioned human beings. We all have our idiosyncrasies. We have our little things. We have our ups. We have our downs. We have our humanness, which is a beautiful part of all relationships. And that means we're going to make mistakes. We're going to get upset. We're going to go through changes. We're going to be happy. We're going to be joyful. We're going to be sad. Wow. And yet so many times when I'm empty and lonely, and loneliness is a killer, man. Because loneliness can literally destroy people. You know, it's been studies have been done on it. This is one of the most powerful things that leads very many times even to suicide feelings, emptiness and loneliness. And as a result, then, as an isolator, I keep looking for something to happen. But it's always looking externally, not internally, because there is no internal. For example, some crazy statements. I have to find somebody by the time I'm 30. Nothing will happen to you. You'll become 31. See how simple it is? Not too complicated. So I'm always trying to find someone, but you can't find someone. You have to be able to work on yourself and take care of yourself. I said it so many times, it's a full-time job. It's a full-time investment. I've also learned if you truly do work on yourself, you'll leave everybody else alone. It's crazy, but it's true. And so the isolation type relationship, that control type relationship, can be very scary. The second area of the concept of unhealthy relationships is a fantasy-based relationship, the magical relationship. And usually these are individuals that come out of homes where there's been a lot of abuse, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of mental illness, a lot of different types of things. And as a result, at a very early age, I don't like my family. I don't like where I am. So what do? I start disassociating and I start creating my little fantasy family. This is how I really want it to be. So I make believe it's really happening when it's not happening. When it comes to relationships, I don't know how to have relationships. So very many times, what do? I go back to what I was taught. I look for craziness. I look for insanity. I look for abuse. I migrate towards these things. They're my normal. So fantasizers very many times love to get involved in relationships with people who are not available for relationships. You see, the bottom line is, I like the insanity. I like the craziness. I like the clandestine. I'm used to this. But as soon as you become available, get lost. Because I don't want to have to say that word, that scary curse word for fantasizers. The word is commitment. See, it's much more fun to stay crazy and insane. It's much more fun to meet somebody secretly. It's much more fun to play all kinds of crazy games because I live in a fantasy world, a make-believe world, and even to a crazy point where I can actually create a relationship that doesn't exist. There's a story. I met this individual a long time ago. He told the story of all these different relationships he was involved in. We came to find out, with a lot of work and a lot of therapy, he was never involved in a relationship at all. See, fantasy, he created it up here. He found what he wanted. And what he would do is he'd fall in love with individuals who didn't know that he was falling in love with them. And then he hung around them. He liked their energy. He liked their stuff. He could become a pain after a while too. So it's all part of it. The bottom line is, what I'm doing is I'm creating something. And we see this a lot in people that get up in, crazy relationships. You don't know how to deal with them. So fantasy, by the way, don't get me wrong. Fantasy's okay if you know it's a fantasy. If you think it's reality, then you're in trouble. We have these old sayings, you heard them, the fall in love. We all fall in love. We fall in love on the average 3 or 4 times a week. It's called attraction. You meet somebody, they're attractive, they look nice, you fall in love for a couple of minutes and they're gone. My wife always told us to tell me years ago, when somebody named Goldie Hawn was on TV, she'd say, your girlfriend's on TV, go say hello to her, will you? I couldn't help it. I like Goldie Hawn. What can I tell you? A little bit of a fantasy. Will I ever meet her? No. But it's a crazy little thing, and we can just kind of joke about this stuff and laugh about it. My wife gave me a gift and I went and did Dream Week, the New York Yankees. I played ball with them for 10 days down in spring training camp. You got to be a ball player for a week as a fantasy. It wasn't real. We had fun. But there's a ball player down there. His name was Ron Guidry. Some of you may know him, Louisiana Lightning. Real handsome, Cajun type guy. So my wife went with me and she said, that's my fantasy, she said. She got to meet him. She has a baseball back here signed by him, everything, the whole works. That's the fun part about life. See, this is normal. But the concept is we have to realize that reality is so much different from trying to live in fantasy. But it's good to have a good one every once in a while. It's okay too. The third area is called caretaking. Now, if you want me to, I'll stay here till midnight tonight and talk about this one. Why? I'm an expert at it because I lived it for 45 years. I was trained in it. It's amazing sometimes how we learn to be caretakers. We learn our identity is in that. And yet caretakers are people with a lot of control, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, because they have to always, always, always be in charge. When it comes to relationships, they love to get involved in relationships with sickies. The sicker, the better. Why? Because I can make you into my project. As a result, then I can work on you. I can also blame you for everything. You see what I'm doing? I'm going out, I'm trying to fix everybody, save everybody, rescue everybody, to avoid having to look at me. And by the way, it's a lot of fun. I did it for a long time. I probably helped a lot of people, sure. Almost killed myself in the process. But the bottom line was, it was that constant giving, fixing, fixing. And back in the older days, when I started working in the field of addiction, we could do things differently. We could tie people up and bring them to treatment. They didn't even know where they were going. I woke up one day, they even used to cold talk, knock guys out and take them to treatment, and they'll wake up in a treatment facility. It's totally amazing, isn't it? We can't do that today. We'll go to jail. The bottom line is this caretaking concept. It means in a relationship, I literally want to be in control of you. I want to work on you. I can see fault in you. I've told this story before, but when I was a priest, my aunt lived in Pennsauken, New Jersey. My aunt was in a wheelchair. I made it a point, like at least once a month, to go visit her, just to stop and say hello, have a cup of tea or coffee, and hang out. But every time I went there, her next door neighbor, the Italian lady who lived next door, saw me coming, would knock on the door and come in. She'd have coffee with us. And every time I was there, she'd say the exact same thing. I had it memorized. She's talk about her husband, the bum. He's a bum. He's no good. All he does is sit on his rear end all day long. He does nothing. I cook, I clean, I wash his clothes, I take care of him. I even help him dress. I do this, my own, on and on and on. And she'd give me a headache. I made the worst mistake in my life one time when she was saying it. I said to her, "Why do you stay with him?" She almost jumped down my throat. She said, "Because I love him." I'm going to tell you a secret. They've been together back then was 45 years. If that sucker ever tried to do anything, she'd kill him. See, again, she had her victim to work on. She was in charge. She could concentrate her whole life just on him and never have to look at herself and deal with her stuff. You know, it's interesting because I did that when I was in the priesthood. I ran around all kinds of causes, programs, things. I wrote a book about it. It's just crazy, some of the stuff I did. I can't believe half the stuff I did. I got involved in starting drug programs, all kinds of programs, working with this, working with that, doing this, running. I was running away from me. I had no idea who I was. I connected to that today, and I can look back on it today. Like I said, caretakers sometimes do a lot of good. Not even know what really in reality, really they enable all kinds of crazy things. So another crazy area, just to kind of show you how this works. So many times in the course of it, it means I got to be in charge. Another story, I remember I used to go to the Element meeting in South Philadelphia on Friday nights when I had the houses in Philly. And we had this lady who would come to our meeting every week. She would come and talk about her husband, the alcoholic. This man was terrible, what he's doing to the family, what he's doing to us. She would go on and on and on. And then one day, finally, after a year or so, he had the audacity to go to treatment and get sober. Then she came to the meetings and bitched because he went to too many damn AA meetings. One time he didn't do this, now he can't do this. There's that control thing again. It's a concept that I need to be in charge of someone. So that's not what relationships are supposed to be. That's what I mean by controlship, manipulationship, onship. That's what I mean about trying to constantly control another human being. So I want them to be what I want them to be. I go into a lot more detail when I do my series on codependency, when I talk on codependency and relationships. But it's crazy sometimes, some of the things that happen. And many times because I have this need inside of me to work on someone, to control someone. Now we do it to our kids. Look how many parents try to live their life through their child and then decide what their child's going to be, how it's going to be, where it's going to be. I ran into that when I was 14 years old. It's amazing. You come right down to it. But it's that concept again, I want you to be this. I want you to be this. We also want to be able to fix our children. I don't want them to go through what I went through. They have to go through whatever they're going to go through because they're on their journey. It's not your journey, it's theirs. And they're going to make mistakes. They're going to fall down. They have to learn how to get back up. And yet so many times, what do we do in caretaking? We keep trying to fix them all the time, give them everything they want, take care of them. I'll tell you a secret. If you do that over and over and over again, they'll resent you. You're taking away their sense of responsibility, their sense of growth, their sense of struggle, their sense of pain, their sense of learning. People need that in their life. It's part of the journey of life. That's why I emphasize over and over again the need for us to be able to look at ourselves and ask some simple questions. We talked about them in the past series. To be able to, who am I? What am I all about? Why am I on this earth? What is my journey? Who am I as a person? To celebrate the gift of yourself. To learn how to love myself and build a relationship with me. To truly get to know me. And I realize today, they understand what they're talking about now when they talk about developing a sense of your spirit, a sense of who you are, being able to develop a good sense of yourself as a person, to have a sense of boundaries, to be able to understand what life really is all about. Because I really believe that everything that happens in life happens for a purpose. There's an open lesson to learn from it and not to spend our life either being resentful or angry or constantly thinking somebody else did this did that to me. Everything in life has a positive side to it. It's a learning process to it. And yet I know deep down inside, so many of us migrate towards types of things. I got to ask you a favor though, okay, please. This is an important one. Please, don't go home tonight and say to your significant other, I went to Vince's lecture tonight and I found out that we have an unhealthy relationship. I don't want to get shot tomorrow, okay? I still think back I'm going back to 1992 with the other place we had. I got a phone call with this gentleman screaming at me on the phone. What did you tell my wife last night? I said, excuse me? I said, who are you and who's your wife? Well, you told my wife what a lousy relationship we had. She came home and told me that you told her this and you told her that. Boom, boom, boom. He says, whoa. I said, well, first of all, I hate to tell you this. I don't even know who your wife is. It was that night I gave that lecture. There was like 50 people there. He was one of them. But see, we have to remember, it's not about judging. I'm describing what I talk about unhealthy relationships because many of us have not had those foundations, those basics, and those fundamentals. Only until we go back and look at them, work on them, learn about ourselves. I told you before, even the founders of AA understood all this. They gave us 12 steps. 11 of them are for us to work on ourselves. And having done your work, carry a message. Make sure you have one to carry before you carry it. And that's important because I truly believe we need to take time to look within, to be able to see who we are as people, and we can go through a process and become part of a community of other individuals. My job is not to control anybody or to tell them what to do. One of the hardest lessons I ever learned when I was studying for my degree in counseling, when I did my internship and my training when I was 37 years old. I remember working at DRC, I had a great mentor. And I was excited. I was going to go into this treatment program and fix all these people. And he said two things to me. He said, first of all, Vince, we don't fix people. They do that to animals. We don't do that here. He said, we carry a message. That's all we do. And one day I had a lady in my office. That lady was an alcoholic. I labeled her. She was going into treatment before she was not getting out of that office until she went to treatment. And Jack always did this. He knocked on the door and he said, come here. And he whispered in my ear, the lady wants to drink. Leave her the hell alone, will you? Give her a break. Let her go. Plant the seed and let go. You can't control somebody else. We see this in so many elements of life. I want people to get well. Good. But they may not. We don't know what's going to happen. See, we can't play God. And sometimes in relationships, we try to play God. I have so much anger inside of me, I take it out on people around me, things in different directions. I need to slow down, relax, and begin to look within. And that's why in the second lecture next week, I want to concentrate just on developing a healthy relationship with yourself as a person. Then the third lecture, we'll talk about how to develop healthy relationships with others. Then in the fourth lecture, actually, there's going to be 5 lectures. One's not going to be me, because in the 24th of this month is my birthday, so I'm taking a few days off. And Kevin Elsey, who's one of our therapists, is going to carry on a conversation about relationships to take my place. And I'll come back and do the last one, which is on relationships and sexuality. So it's just kind of neat when you look at the concept of relationships. We're trying to develop more and more programs about relationships to help people to look at these in their life. So I truly believe they are the gifts of life. They are the core of life. They are the center of life. And nobody comes into your life by accident. Your children, nobody. They're all part of the journey. Letting go is not easy. It's not easy. Raising 3 stepdaughters, watching them go through their growth process, watching them make the mistakes and do their growing. I'm grateful God's been good, but I realize now you have to learn to step back and allow them to go through it. You have to like it all the time now. It's not your job to control it. We do this in sports. We do a lot of things in life because of pressure. No. Enjoy life, celebrate life. My prayer tonight is that we're able to identify things that are unhealthy and be able to literally begin to go to the core of dealing with it. We don't deal with it by attacking the other person or the other individual or the situation. We get into the blame game. We take care of it by working on ourselves. I'll give you a good example of this. A very good friend of mine who came to me a long time ago and asked for some advice. And I sent this individual to get some help from a very learned therapist. And the person began to work on themselves. They tried to get their partner to work on themselves and they didn't want to do it. And so it's like anything else. If you begin to work on yourself and you begin to grow and other people don't want to grow, you're going to grow away from each other. But you have to move forward. You can't stay still. And you can't go back. It's part of the journey of life. So the real celebration of life is to learn from people around us, to grow from them, to realize that everybody's a teacher. We're all teachers to one another. Congratulations. We're family. We're connected to each other. I mean, we all handle things differently. We're all a bunch of human beings. We make mistakes. We screw up. People get upset. We go through changes. But above all, we're human and we're doing it. And so we'll concentrate on those area relationships and really emphasize the importance of our own personal relation with ourselves as a person. So let us pray. God, we come before you tonight, the God of our understanding, our divine presence. We ask that you grant us the gift that you've given to us at the moment of our birth, the gift of your energy, the gift of your love. Help us to be able to develop that, to work on that. So when we attract into our life people we can share that with, we can learn, we can grow. Teach us to be open. Teach us to look at things with an attitude of gratitude, an attitude of openness, an attitude of learning. Teach us to realize how gracious and beautiful the journey with you is. Teach us to realize the gifts that's been given to us. Teach us not to take them for granted, but to celebrate each person that's been part of our journey on this earth, to celebrate situations that occur, to celebrate the mistakes that we make, to realize that somehow, some way, they will all come to the good. We'll be able to learn and grow from all the experiences in life. Please, please help us to be open, help us to learn, help us to look within and to celebrate the beautiful gift of your creation, the gift of each and every one of us. Teach us to respect each other, celebrate each other, honor each other, and learn and grow from each other. Teach us in prayer to learn the importance of praying, the importance sometimes of detaching and letting go, the importance of saying goodbye and saying hello. All these beautiful things that make up the mosaic and the beauty of life. But above all, help us, please. Walk with us on the journey. As we ask for your help and guidance, be there to help us. And thank you so much for the messengers you send into life. And I pray tonight in a very special way for Annie, who gave me the gift of this book, who helped me to go through my journey. I know she was an angel sent by you. And I know that we all have angels in our lives, people that come and touch us and help us. They come and sometimes they go, and they move on. Their journey is there for us to learn and grow from. With gratitude, with love, with openness, with the gift of life. We are grateful for all the gifts you've given us and the gift of one another. We pray and we ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.